Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
The CCJ strikes down the mandatory death penalty in Barbados. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, June 27. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Sharon Coward. Good evening. The Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, has ruled that the mandatory death penalty in Barbados is unconstitutional. The court delivered the ruling on Wednesday based on two unrelated death penalty cases, which were consolidated because each appellant was challenging his murder conviction and the constitutionality of the mandatory death sentence. Before examining the issues raised by the appeal, the CCJ judges considered the state of the mandatory death penalty in Barbados for murder and found that it was indisputable that the country had acknowledged it had an obligation to remove such a mandatory sentence under Section 2 of the Offences Against the Person Act. It noted that Barbados had also given undertakings to the CCJ and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights to rectify the mandatory sentence. The CCJ also held that Section 11 of the Constitution, which gives the right to protection of the law, was enforceable, and the mandatory death penalty breached that right as it deprived a court of the opportunity to exercise the quintessential judicial function of tailoring the punishment to fit the crime. As for the cases themselves, the CCJ dismissed the appeals by death row inmates Jabari Nervay and Dwayne Severin against their convictions. But after ruling that the mandatory death penalty is unconstitutional, the court ordered that the two be expeditiously taken before the Supreme Court for resentencing. Jamaica's Labour Minister has announced an increase in the national minimum wage. Shaheen Roberts says the 12.9% increase from 6,200 Jamaica dollars to $7,000 a week will take effect from August 1. The rate paid to industrial security guards will also be adjusted on that date by 9.6%. Minister Robinson made the announcement during her contribution to the sectoral debate yesterday afternoon.
The minimum wage for security guards The minimum wage for security guards would also be increased from $8,854 to $9,700 per week, or $242.50 per hour. These increases represent an increase of approximately 12.9% or 9.6% respectively. And once again, the minimum wage is just a guide. It is a minimum that employers cannot go below. So any employer who wants to pay more, they can do so.
The minimum wage was previously increased in Jamaica on March 1st, 2016. Former Haitian President and coup leader Lieutenant General Henri Namfi is dead. He died on Tuesday in the neighboring Dominican Republic following a battle with lung cancer. Namfi, who lived in exile in the Dominican Republic, headed Haiti's military-dominated government after the fall of the Duvalier family dictatorship. Namfi became head of the interim National Council of Governments that took charge of Haiti in 1986 when Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier fled into exile in France. He also served as president before he was ousted in a coup in 1988. His presidency lasted only 3 months, and after being ousted, he fled to the Dominican Republic. He was 85. Trinidad and Tobago's Energy Minister Franklin Kahn says the state of the country's oil company Petrotrin saddens him. Speaking at an energy resources conference, he said asset integrity issues and financial constraints are crippling the company's operations.
As a former employee of Petrotrin, I feel great pain to see the current state of that company.
State-owned oil company Petrotrin continues to be plagued by a host of managerial problems, leading to record-high losses and an unsustainable debt profile. They currently produce 42,270 barrels per day. however, continues to experience a steady decline in oil production.
The decline is due to limited exploration activities, which is the result of financial constraint and asset integrity issues. You know, it is said that insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Energy Minister Franklin Kahn has proposed a turnaround for the company with 4 components: 1, new leadership; 2, new technology; 3, the right skill set; and 4, significant new capital injection.
This is a business about deep pockets. And if your pocket is not deep, get out.
As to where the capital will come from is left to be seen, as the minister says that the government has no money to give Petrotrin.
Under the watch of this administration and under my personal watch, Petrotrin has to and is going to change.
Meanwhile, over in Jamaica, teams from the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency MOCA and the Integrity Commission on Tuesday raided the scandal-hit state-owned oil refinery Petrojam. This as investigations continued into questionable activities at the company. MOCA stepped into Petrojam following calls from the main opposition for the investigative body to probe corruption at the oil refinery. The private sector organization of Jamaica and other private sector groups also called for a forensic audit at Petrojam and the Universal Service Fund. The scandal involving allegations of corruption and victimization at the state-run entity and questions surrounding the use of public funds has intensified in recent weeks, and there are calls for the energy minister to resign. In a joint statement, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica on Monday called for a forensic audit of the refinery. The groups argued that preserving the country's reputation for ethics and transparency in its affairs is critical to attracting investments and confidence in the economy. A recent announcement that Chinese nationals will be allowed to enter the British Virgin Islands without visas has prompted outrage in the British Overseas Territory. But Premier Dr. Orlando Smith has sought to set the record straight, explaining that while the Chinese no longer require visas, they will only be allowed to remain in the territory for up to 6 months, and they'll only be granted access to the BVI for business and tourism-related matters. The Premier said they would also still have to adhere to normal border control procedures in keeping with the laws of the territory. In the midst of public backlash from what has been called a relaxation in immigration policies for Chinese, the government said it foresees several benefits to the visa exemption policy. It also pointed to other competing Caribbean destinations such as Antigua and Barbuda, Turks and Caicos Islands, and Jamaica that have offered Chinese nationals visa-free access. Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, environmentalists in Grenada concerned about green algae on the world-renowned Grand Anse Beach. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
It starts from sunrise, a city filled with an island vibe, music, people, color, friendship, culture, and the warmest of smiles. Come enjoy the unique costumes, pulsating steel pans, exotic culture, exciting fetes, and unforgettable people. Discover Antigua's Carnival, the Caribbean's greatest summer festival, July 27th to August 8th, because the beach really is just the beginning.
As you know, Sink Sir Sink is family. We're artists ourselves, and we've been through the hardship of you know, being an artist and not having enough platforms
Yes.
in South Florida for artists. You know, you go to other states and like Georgia, they have indie festivals
They
for independent
do.
artists. You go to California, they have plethora of them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But here we didn't have none.
Right.
So we felt like going through the years of us being artists, we always felt like we wanted to create a platform.
Environmentalists and environmental activists in Grenada are concerned about the mass showing of green algae on the world-renowned Grand Anse beach. They say the beach has had algae at different periods in history before, but not in such large quantities and not green. That's an indication that there is some form of contamination. The algae is predominantly near a new hotel development taking place on lands that were previously reserved as marshlands. This is prompting environmentalists to suggest that the fragile ecosystem has been tampered with. We get more in this report from Eugenia Peters of GBN Television.
Grenada's world-famous Grand Anse Beach is not capturing the headlines in a positive light as an environmental concern has emerged, that of algae thriving in its waters. The recent appearance has some concern that this may affect the entire coastline if left untreated or ignored. Social advocate and lobbyist Sandra Ferguson is calling on government to address the issue.
What I have never seen is what I call the explosion of this type, right? This green type. And we know that this is really associated with pollutants. You know, we see these things in drains and so on. And I refer to it as an explosion. You will see it in the sea, and I have never seen it so extensive. And also along the beach. And one of the concerns that has always been put forward about this project, right, is that this is the last remaining wetland on Grand Anse Beach. And there were explicit recommendations by the tourism plan to leave this marshland, this wetland, undisturbed because it served the purpose of filtering or straining the water before it went into the sea.
The algae research says is not toxic to humans or animals. However, the carpet on the surface can dramatically change the ecology of the environment beneath it. It blocks sunlight from entering the ocean and sucks oxygen from the water, suffocating marine life. Marine biologist at St. George's University, Dr. Claire Morale, says the algae's presence is due to a number of reasons, but agrees with Ferguson that the development which has taken place on the wetland has significantly contributed to the situation.
But moving on to the concern with regard to silver sands, I think most people who knew the area before it was developed, it was something of a wetland area, and natural wetlands are really very important ecologically. And of course, anything that's important ecologically ends up being important for us as well. So the value, the highest ecological value of a wetland area is that it filters, it stops the flow of water, it will slow the flow of water, slow and stop it, but also retain some of that stuff that's running off of the land. So now we no longer have that area because there's development there, which is, just in the last few years. Then that ecological role of the wetland is no longer there.
Ferguson, meanwhile, says this sends a negative message on Grenada's part, being a lead in the fight against climate change.
And that we embarking on this, embarking to make Grenada a climate resilient nation, when in fact the simple natural things that cost us no money are being destroyed.
U.S. researchers estimate that blooms of harmful algae cost the United States at least $50 million per year. The economic damage arises from the death of fish, shellfish, submerged aquatic vegetation, and coral reefs, and the costs of conducting monitoring programs and quarantine toxic shellfish and other affected resources, among others.
The Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System is finally off the United Nations list of endangered World Heritage Sites. The reef was inscribed as a World Heritage Site in 1996, But in 2009, it was placed on the list of World Heritage Sites in danger due to the destruction of mangroves and marine ecosystems, offshore oil exploration, and the development of non-sustainable building projects. The official announcement was made in Bahrain on Tuesday, where a Belize delegation, headed by Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber, was on hand. The UN agreed to the delisting after the Belize government passed legislation putting a moratorium on oil exploration in the entire maritime zone of Belize, the strengthening of forestry regulations allowing for better protection of mangroves. We get more in this report from Channel 5 in Belize.
Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber was at today's World Heritage Committee meeting in Bahrain, where he spoke of GOB's commitments thus far, including the historic ban on offshore oil exploration that was announced in December of last year.
We have instituted a legislated total ban on offshore oil exploration and have passed and implemented a comprehensive coastal zone management plan. We celebrate the fact that Belize's overall mangrove cover in the site is maintained at 96% over the last 36 years. We further strengthen our position by now ensuring the further protection and management of mangroves nationally via revised mangrove regulations. We are finalizing the work to create mangrove reserves for the remaining mangrove stands within national land in the site, and have a draft revised environmental impact assessment framework and legislation to ensure that development nationally is well regulated and takes into consideration the importance of our natural assets.
Belize received verbal support from a number of countries around the world whose representatives praised Belize's efforts to get the Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System removed from the list of the World Heritage Sites in danger.
We compliment the commitment and Herculean effort of Belize in addressing the issues impacting the OUV of the site. Belize has protected 21% of its territorial waters, instituted a legislated total ban on offshore oil drilling, and has approved and implemented a comprehensive national coastal zone management plan, addressing all development and sectoral activities within its territorial waters. Therefore, St. Kitts and Nevis supports the removal of the Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System from the list of World Heritage in danger.
Hungary welcomes and fully supports the removal of the property Belize Barrier Reef Reserve System from the World Heritage list in danger. We congratulate to the State Party for achieving the desired state of conservation for removal through the proper application of legal tools and procedures, including the environmental impact assessment, as well as protective measures integrated into the Coastal Zone Management Plan and regulations aiming at the protection of mangrove forest. The property had been inscribed on the World Heritage List in danger in 2009. Hungary recommends that this almost 10-year process be used as an example and good practice for state parties having World Heritage sites on the list in danger.
But to get the site removed from the endangered list, it took significant resources, mobilization, collaboration, and action. The conservation community particularly championed the cause. The World Wildlife Fund started a campaign 3 years ago to get the government to take the necessary steps needed to get the barrier reef off the endangered list. Those initiatives included a campaign that saw the delivery of 265,000 signed petitions delivered to the Prime Minister's office in March of last year.
In an immediate response, Guatemala's representative at the meeting said despite the good news of the delisting, the barrier reef system is disputed territory, and his government's hope was that the World Heritage Committee will continue to safeguard world heritage and not engage in discussions of sovereignty.
Guatemala would like to highlight that the Barrier Reef Reserve system is of great value, and yet there is a disputed territory between the state party in concern and Guatemala concerning the use and access to the space. Guatemala feels that all efforts should be undertaken to preserve this jewel of a natural heritage, and we think that that it really is of the utmost importance that the site be preserved.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, the West Indies captain blames silly mistakes for his side's defeat in the Test series against Sri Lanka. We'll be right back.
This hurricane tip comes to you compliments the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Caribbean Media Corporation. Be prepared If power is lost, turn off major appliances to reduce power surge when the electricity is restored.
Violence in schools, media hype or reality? That's the topic for discussion in the next UNICEF-sponsored Activate Talks right here on Carib Vision. Activate Talks is a global series by UNICEF designed to spark discussion on issues affecting children and youth. So join us at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, June 27th and find out about violence in schools. Media hype or reality?
I grew up, like he said before, my parents weren't married. So I grew up, my mom raised me, my dad was there, he raised me too, and I had my stepmother who was very present. No problems. We didn't have arguing, we didn't, you know, there was no struggle, there was no, this is my week, this is your week, we didn't have that. My mom, everyone knew their role, everyone played their role properly.
Captain Jason Holder said Tuesday that the West Indies had made silly mistakes which cost them the historic day-night test and a much-needed series win over Sri Lanka. In a low-scoring contest at Kensington Oval, West Indies went down by 4 wickets on the penultimate day on Tuesday to surrender their series lead and settle for a 1-1 draw in the 3-test rubber. West Indies had the better of the first innings exchanges to lead Sri Lanka by 50 runs, but then crashed to 93 all-out, their lowest ever total at the Oval, before missing catches, while the visitors successfully chased down 144 for victory. Holder said they were victorious in the last 2 test matches they played at the Oval, so it's tough to come and lose a close one. The West Indies skipper said despite the defeat, he was pleased with his performance. West Indies faced Bangladesh in the first match of a 2-test series starting July 4th in Antigua. Barbadian all-rounder Hayley Matthews took top honours at the Cricket West Indies Women's Awards ceremony in Jamaica on Monday. TVJ's Spencer Darlington has this report.
Was the star of the show at the Cricket West Indies Women's Championship Awards function on Monday night at the Hotel Four Seasons. Matthews captured the MVP for both the T20 and 50-over competitions. The Bajan all-rounder was the highest run scorer in the T20 competition with 173 runs and had the joint best batting performance in a match with Guyana's Tremaine Campbell with a best innings of 61. Matthews was also the leading run getter in the 50-over competition with 209 runs and was also adjudged the best all-rounder.
It's really good when you can be able to come to this level and be able to do really well, and I'm just hoping that I can hopefully carry the performances onto the international level as well.
Jamaica's pair of Shedi Nation and Vanessa Watts shared the award for most wickets in the T20 blaze with 9 each. Watts also claimed the best bowling performance with 5 for 9. Jamaica won the T20 competition with Barbados finishing second. In the Super 50, Guyana's Tremaine Campbell won the best batting performance with an innings of 107 against Leeward Islands, while Amanda Edwards of the Leewards had the best bowling figures in the match. She grabbed a 6 for 56 against Trinidad and Tobago.
8-time Olympic gold medalist and 11-time world champion Usain Bolt said memories of his first world record flooded back when he visited the National Stadium on Tuesday. Bolt signaled his future greatness at just 17. That's when he became the first junior athlete to break the 20-second mark over 200 meters at the Carifta Games at the stadium in 2004, crossing the winning line in 19.3 seconds. The Sprint King was in Bermuda on a promotional visit for mobile phone network provider Digicel.
Well, for me, this track is historical track for me. It's the first time I've ever broken a record. It has a lot of memories for me, and I'm just happy to actually be back in Bermuda. A lot of memories, a lot of fun times. just remembering growing up and understanding what I've been through to get to where I'm at. And when I broke this record for the first time here, the 200 record, I never knew I'd be at this level at this point in my career. So for me, saying that is just to point out that working hard is everything, and never giving up on your dream. I started out never knowing how far I could have gone or wanted to go, but I know that I wanted to be one of the best, so I just continue working and continue pushing myself and just dedicating my life to the sport.
Staying in the sport of athletics, the Guyana government is finally heeding calls by top athletes who are demanding that they be given incentives for excellent performances on the regional and world stage. Minister of Social Cohesion with responsibility for culture, youth and sport, Dr. George Norton, said the matter of rewards for performances is being addressed in the national sports policy. The document that was made public by government outlines incentive packages for individual athletes or teams who attain gold, silver or bronze at regional, sub-regional and international championships. Norton explained that while the issue is complex, careful thought must be given as the government does not want to shortchange any athlete. The package includes acknowledgements in the form of promotional tours, formal receptions and media engagements. The financial package will be a predetermined amount of money compared to regional standards and a tangible reward in the form of a piece of land or a built house through a state-supported scheme. However, the package can become more lucrative as the draft policy, depending on feedback from ongoing national consultations. Minister Norton said these changes will not happen overnight, adding that it will take some time before the final draft is ready. He said that while athletes are usually well compensated for their efforts in other countries, the same cannot be done in Guyana at the moment until the policy is completed and passed in the National Assembly. Bermuda has named a 20-strong squad for the 5-day Central American and Caribbean Swimming Championships in Aruba, which start on Friday. Top swimmers Jessie Washington and Madeline Moore will spearhead the Bermuda Challenge. Other members are Jaden Judd, Josephine Durden, Giada Dudley-Pun, Logan Watson-Brown, Taylor White, Gabby Pittman, Peyton Zelke, Skylar Powell, Vanessa Esposito, Shannon Hassel, Brian Desmond, Sam Williamson, Jack Harvey, Adam Young, Caleb Ingham, Brett Smith, Kai Legband, and Evan Barrow. Bermuda Swimming Association President Doug Patterson sent best wishes to the team and is confident they will swim to the best of their ability and will represent Bermuda well. That's the sports. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
It starts from sunrise, a city filled with an island vibe, music, people, color, friendship, culture, and the warmest of smiles. Come enjoy the unique costumes, pulsating steel pans, exotic culture, exciting fetes, and unforgettable people. Discover Antigua's Carnival, the Caribbean's greatest summer festival, July 27th to August 8th, because the beach really is just the beginning.
Top story as we go. The Caribbean Court of Justice has ruled that the mandatory death penalty in Barbados is unconstitutional. That's Caribbean Newsline for today. Thanks for joining us. There's more news on sports at cornernews.com. We'll see you again tomorrow.